This is Broadwells Wood, just outside Kenilworth, and the sun is setting on this place in a quite literal sense at the moment, because in a week, maybe two, HS2 intend to cut down this magnificent ancient woodland, this remnant of the Forest of Arden that's been here for millennia, if not forever. And actually Broadwells Wood here is the single largest, well, represents the single largest deforestation of ancient woodland anywhere along the HS2 route. And it does seem, by the fences that have gone up over the weekend, and the blokes behind me with birds of prey that are trying to scare the birds away in this woodland, that they're going to go for it first. Maybe to set an example, maybe because of the point it is on the critical path diagram. But this is a travesty, because as you can see, this is a wonderful place. It's teeming with wildlife. There were loads of birds singing a second ago. Since the guys with the hawks have turned up, they've shut up. But the guys with the hawks are a brilliant example of the fact that HS2 Ltd have set their sights and signalled that they're willing to break the law to take down these trees, because nesting birds are protected under the 1981 Wildlife and Countryside Act. So for about a month they've had Harris hawks flying round these woodlands trying to scare the birds away. And the thing is, having tame birds of prey fly around when you've got actual birds of prey that really eat the birds and they're still nesting despite the buzzards and the owls being here, yeah, having a tame bird of prey isn't really going to do anything, and it hasn't. But what the RSPB have said is that, you know, this idea that they're flying the hawks around to scare off the birds, it's wrong, it's immoral, and they very, very clearly, the RSPB very, very clearly expect that HS2 Ltd are going to cut down trees with nesting birds in breach of the 1981 Wildlife and Countryside Act. And a couple of weeks ago they sent a letter to that effect saying that they wanted members of the public to report the crimes of HS2 Ltd. And the problem is that members of the public aren't going to be able to report the crimes of HS2 Ltd, because HS2 Ltd this week applied for an injunction to stop people going in the land that they say they own or possess. We would say that they've seized illegally without payment, but hey, you know, tomato. And even over there, they fenced off woodland that they don't own and surrounded it with injunction. And despite the judge very, very specifically, and I know because I was in court, saying that there should be access to that bit of woodland over there, there isn't. They've just put up the fences because that's what HS2 Ltd do. They do what they like. They get away with anything. And, you know, it's Mother's Day today, and you may well have noticed that the country's basically almost on lockdown, that we're being told don't go out at all. Well, today, over this weekend, HS2 Ltd has said, oh, we're not meant to have loads of people all together, you know, within 2 meters of each other. Okay, you know what? We'll do exactly the opposite. This is the very first weekend that HS2 have ever had weekend working in Warwickshire, and it has been to fence off this woodland, obviously with the workers in very close proximity of each other, because they intend to cut down these trees within days. And they've stated this, that they intend to cut down these trees in April during nesting season, and by seeking an injunction they are making sure there are no members of the public around to witness their crimes or even prevent those crimes taking place. And I know those crimes are taking place because last year I went to one of the places that they cut down trees, and it took me like 2 minutes to find a bird's nest with an egg in it in the central reservation at Balsall Common. But in New Year's Covert down in Harefield, where they got an injunction and they'd fenced off the place, they chopped down every single tree. It all went to wood chip, and there were thousands of trees cut down. And they had the brass necks. Oh no, not what thousands of trees, but there wasn't one single nesting bird in nesting season. You'll have to take our word for it, because everything went in the wood chipper. And that's it. Even this week, HS2, they took myself and Matt Bishop to court to get the injunction for this. We were specifically named. The judge removed our names without us even asking for it. You know, I've never been called respectable more times in my life. And when HS2 Ltd tried to say, when the barrister actually said, well, if it's a case of, you know, local people overreacting or a government project willfully breaking the law, I think we can all agree it's going to be the former. To which the judge said, you're not exactly convincing me to that point. She also said that she wasn't convinced that HS2 would be around in 6 months, and yeah, she wasn't massively convinced about the project at all, saying that they did not come into that case with clean hands. But in terms of the law, you know, it doesn't matter if you've paid for this land. If the land registry say you own it, you own it. So eviction notice at the camp at Crackley and Cubbington was awarded, and an injunction will kick in place on the 24th of March in this wonderful, wonderful woodland. Just one last thing before we go, because I came here last year and I did a little video called HS2 Fails to Measure Up, because I wanted to demonstrate that people think, a lot of people thought, well, it's just a railway. I stood on a railway platform. It can't be that bad. And no. It's not as bad as a motorway. And in some cases, the width of HS2, actually, it's about the width of 2 motorways. In fact, next to the M1 in Nottinghamshire, there was a consultation to change the route near Trowel Services, and very handily, it was next to the M1. So on the maps, you had the M1 and the land take of HS2. And the land take of HS2 was about 3 times wider than what is now the 8-lane M1 at that point. But anyway, last year, what I did is I got my surveyor's tape out and compared a disused railway bridge, which was a double track railway, which was, I think, 9.5 metres, with what I thought was the best approximation of the land take here at Broadwells Wood. But I couldn't be certain that I got it accurately. I thought, you know, it seems that I tried my best to make sure I was doing it in a straight line, but without an actual reference point provided by HS2, it was very difficult to know whether I'd actually got the right point. But of course now, they've got these fences up. I'm not sure if you can see the fence on the other side, and we can measure the gap between them. So it's roughly 48 metres to this point. I think it's about halfway. What I'm doing now is, instead of measuring from that tree, I've walked in a straight line to the opposite fence, and I'll measure back to that tree from here, which means that I will get, this is actually favouring HS2, it means that my line will be straighter and there won't be any error because it's pinned right on the fence. I should also point out that there are trees marked up that are outside the devastation zone, which might mean that the estimate I put in last time was slightly over, because I measured it from the last tree to the first tree on the other side that had been marked up as high, HMRL, high, medium or low, which turned out to be chance of having bats in it. There are some N's over there for no chance of bats, because that tree is far too thin and small and young, so there is pretty much no chance of bats in that one. As far as we know, that they still haven't got the second part of the bat mitigation licence, which is one of the reasons I think that they want to desperately get these trees down in April, because it's before the bat the bat nursery season starts. Though of course, as mentioned before, it would still be in bird nesting season, a law which HS2 seem pretty happy to break. And maybe I'm, you know, one of the last non-threatening people to walk through these woods as the birds sing with not the first idea what awaits them and their habitat. And it seems ridiculous at this point in time, when we're having extraordinary economic measures to alleviate the COVID-19 crisis, that something that is so fundamentally terrible is still going ahead. And this is very reminiscent of last time, because they go 50 metres, I've run out of tape, and I'm almost there. That's a tree that I measured to before, that was a 48 metre point. So it's 98 metres plus that bit from here to there, which, there we go. That's, oh no, not quite right. Yeah, we'll mark that out with the hat. So here we are, hat still in place. Clip that on, very scientific. Put the battery pack down on top of it. It was 48 metres to just past this tree, I think. So give HS2 the benefit of the doubt. It is the same tree, and there we are. That's 7 metres. So let's see that. Oh dear. That 50 metres plus 48 metres plus 7 metres. That's 105 metres wide. 105 metres width of HS2 through this ancient woodland, because it's in a bit of a cutting here. You can just about see the edge of the ancient woodland over that way. No chance that way, it's way too thick. 105 metres width of this. And you can hear all those birds, I say, they've got no idea what's coming for them in a week, a couple of weeks time. And HS2, so they've had people working out on the weekend for the first time ever in Warwickshire, because they are desperate to get these woods down in April, because if they don't, they'll probably have to wait until September again, because they were meant to do it last September, and the Oakery review and the camps that we had and Chris Packham's legal challenge all combined to stop them back then. The Oakery review's gone now, but HS2 still hasn't got notice to proceed. The camps, well, some of them are meant to be evicted on Tuesday. Others up and down the line will still be there, and of course Chris Packham's legal challenge is still rumbling on. So why on earth are we doing this? It's all about money, isn't it? It always has been. Always has been. But you would think that following the Heathrow ruling, the environment might be a little bit more important. With what's going on in the world at the moment, everyone should take a step back and think about what is truly important. Personally, I think this is.